Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to today's webcast reviewing HIVE Blockchain Technologies financial results for the year ended March 31st, 2021. My name is Holly Schoenfeld. If we move on to slide number 2, except for the statements of historical fact, this presentation contains forward-looking information within the meaning of the applicable Canadian securities legislation that is based on expectations, estimates, and assumptions as the date of this presentation. Please see the corresponding slide up on your screen for the full disclosures. And next, moving on to slide number 3, I am pleased to welcome the presenters for today's program. Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman, Darcy Daubaras, Chief Financial Officer, and Aydin Kilic, President and Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you, Holly. Let's talk about what I think is another way of forward-looking statements, that life is all about managing expectations. And what quants like to look at is the DNA of volatility. And every asset class has its own DNA of volatility. So how do you manage your expectations is to understand what is the daily volatility and what is the 10-day volatility. Interesting enough, as you can see, gold and the stock market have the same one-day volatility, but gold stocks are twice as volatile on a daily basis. And look at 10 days, nothing for the stock market or gold to go up or down 3%. Most often they will tell you that gold is more volatile than bullion, but it's not. And when we look at Bitcoin on a daily basis, is a 4% is a non-event for it to go up or down 4%, 70% of the time. But over 10 days, it's 14% swings that are very, very common. And when we take a look at Ethereum, it's even more so. It's 6 times more volatile on a daily basis than gold, bullion, or the stock market, but over 10 days is 19%. So this does have a big impact on HIVE Blockchain Technologies stock, because in this rising bull market, we've been able to demonstrate substantial growth in revenue and cash flow and earnings, and that DNA volatility is always greater. So I think it's so important that before you look to invest or to try to understand that each asset class has its own DNA of volatility. HIVE has many firsts. Besides being the most profitable company at the end of March of 2021, we started first in September 4 years ago of 2017. And we're the first to go public, and we're the first to mine both Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we were first to buy our own data centers. And then we were first to be 100% green energy with an ESG strategy, and the first to be interlisted with Germany, Canada, and the US. But most important that's happened recently is we got listed on NASDAQ. And this has been an important part in that sort of path in the growth of the brand of HIVE Blockchain Technology. In that fourth quarter of 2017, HIVE raised $200 million in 3 different tranches. And we want to thank Fidelity in particular for believing in our vision and giving us participating in each of those 3 financings for a total of $100 million. Operations are all situated in cool jurisdictions with access to low cost, 100% green, renewable energy. HIVE beats cryptos in September of 2021. Performance in 12 months ended August 31st in 2021. HIVE beat the Bloomberg Galaxy Ethereum Index. HIVE beat the Bloomberg Galaxy Bitcoin Index. And HIVE beat handsomely the S&P 500 Index. So I think it's the concept of having a small weighting in this new disruptive alternative asset class has been wise for those early adopters. HIVE outperformed Ethereum and Bitcoin in 2020 also. When we take a look at in the past 12 months at the end of August of 2021, HIVE appreciated 864%, Ethereum 760%, and Bitcoin 311%. The high performance soars since March of 2020, and you can see that year that as we just released these earnings, that for the 12 months, we were up 2,767%, by far the most liquid and best performing crypto stock for that time period. But what drove that? The Wisdom of Crowds written by Soroki, and in that particular book, he talks about the crowds can be actually quite wise, but underpinning that growth in the stock price was also this spectacular growth in our revenue and our gross margins. As you can see, over the past 3 years, ended March 31st, we went from 31 million down to 29 million, and then we more than doubled to $66 million. And when you look at the past 4 quarters where we demonstrate this spectacular performance, a lot has to do with this growth, as you can see, in income each quarter, from 6.6 million to 13 million to 13.7 million and to 33 million. In fact, in the last quarter, or the first quarter of this year, of January, February, and March, we made more money in the month of February than the previous quarter. It was such an incredible run in Ethereum, and it continues to remain strong in price action. The last great chapter in the mobile wave is the digital transformation of property. Bitcoin is the dominant digital property network, says Michael Saylor, and we have to agree that this incredible creation in 1991, blockchain, created by telecom companies to help move money, is the next level of accounting. They call it triple entry accounting. And it's the idea of digital private property. And I think it's so important for investors to research this on their own, to really appreciate this adoption that's taking place. And I think that Michael Saylor has done a phenomenal job in educating investors on this concept. But what happens in this sort of incredible leadership he not only showed in educating investors on the significance of Bitcoin, it's also that all the miners took it on the chin because of a statement by Elon Musk of the cost of mining and coal mining. And a lot of this stuff was FUD. It was basically information that was really not, it was false. And I think it's important for investors to recognize what is this operative word, which you're going to hear more and more and more in the capital marketplace. And the concept of FUD, for me, is just truly an important concept of things that are true, that are false, that they're misleading to people. They create an uncertainty with people, and they create doubt. So whenever you create fear, you create uncertainty, or you create doubt towards a country, towards a politician, in particular is where it started with, and it's practiced by the socialist regimes of the world. It's synchronized and organized. It also is shown up to be anti-crypto, is a lot of FUD goes out there. The industry basically came together and went out to prove to everyone that we do not consume the amount of electricity being alleged. And second of all, China, which was the biggest producer, has been forced out of the industry, and they were the biggest coal users of the world. This has all seemed to have moved, in particular, the state of Texas has benefited from over 1.2 gigawatts of stranded energy is being used now for electricity. It is quasi-green, and I think it's important for investors to truly recognize not only Michael Saylor's stewardship and leadership in this, but the amount of FUD that was going around the cost of energy. And it was frustrating for HIVE shareholders because we've always had a green energy. We've always been recyclable. We've been green, green, green. But we all got tarnished and pulled down with that same pronouncement. Now, HIVE ended the year at a very healthy cash on hand, amounts receivable, prepaids, and digital currencies, and total current assets of 107 million. And what's really important is that we launched the ATM in February that allowed us to, it's called at the market prospectus transaction over 2 years to raise money. We raised money on only up days. That money allowed us to basically pay our costs, to hodl all of our coins that we could. And we continue to hodl Bitcoin and Ethereum. And as you've been able to see in subsequent press releases, this has truly benefited, especially every time Bitcoin, Ethereum rally, and we have more on our balance sheet. We not only get mark-to-market increases in income, but we also get overall a big balance sheet, and our assets have this exponential growth with income. Real assets, I was thrilled to see this, the next big thing. I'm so known for gold, a gold investor. How could I ever go in the crypto space? And I have, and launching the first crypto mining company. And this generated lots of interest. And this is important because this goes out to, I think it's like 70,000 registered investment advisors across America that are very keen and interested in looking at crypto. So we currently hold over 1,030 green and clean Bitcoins. The company is pleased to provide the following updated on its global BTC growth and production for the current 2020 fiscal year. You can see in April was only 64, and now it's 234 at the end of August. The biggest thing that will slow down this type of growth will be as more people come in to start mining Bitcoin, you get this called hashing power difficulty. But we have mapped out, and we've made many public releases that as more equipment comes in to mine more Bitcoin and Ethereum, we hope to be extremely competitive in that branch out so that we can grow our footprint in this space. What's really significant here in this hodling strategy, which we commented earlier this year, you can see at the end of 2020, we had approximately $3 million in Ethereum and Bitcoin. At that time, we were trading our Ethereum to be able to upgrade and sustain our economic growth. What you can see here now, that's grown almost 20-fold on our balance sheet, and it's continued to grow to this day. So what drives these stock prices? Blonedy does a great job in trying to explain it, but I want to explain to you in a simple triangle. The daily price action relates to the visual I shared with you earlier, the DNA volatility. Over 96% of the time, we go up and down with Bitcoin, Ethereum pricing. And then a lot relates to our current hashing power, and the future potential hashing power is all the equipment that mining companies have purchased. They make pronouncements, and you know what the quality of this equipment is. You know its ability, how much it can produce at this difficulty rate, what it would produce if it was in production today. And the market seems to put a higher value on your future hashing power even before the equipment has arrived and been plugged in. That's what we've noticed. I'll comment on that in a few seconds, but our current hashing power, because we've been mining Ethereum for the past year, it's given us a big competitive advantage because a lot of companies made pronouncements to buy all this Bitcoin mining ASIC chips, but they've not come on stream yet. So our continuous mining of Ethereum coupled with our growth in Bitcoin mining has truly added to our footprint of being able to grow. This is another way of looking at what's happening in the industry. Crypto miners share dilution comparison. I'm proud to share with you that we've had the minimal amount of dilution compared to Marathon, which has had the largest, Riot, Bitfarms, and HUD-8 to buy more equipment, but they have not had the revenue per share. You can see so far at end of March 21 compared to what HIVE has demonstrated. But the market is paying a bigger market cap for this future growth potential. And so what HIVE has a different strategy of what it's doing. These other companies are run by great leaders. And I can share with you that when HIVE first went public in the the last quarter of 2017, in September of 2017, a lot of the CEOs were just basically jumping on the bandwagon of the success of HIVE and running out to say they're getting in the crypto mining industry, but they had no real substance to them. Now, when I speak at conferences, I can share with you that the quality of the leadership of these other companies is far superior than it was 4 years ago. Now, another way of looking at it is the gross income, and this how did Marathon has had much substantially less revenue. The future, everyone's betting on the future to come through, which we hope it does for them. And then there's Riot, and there's HUD-8, and there's Bitfarms. And Bitfarms was also green only until they started branching into Argentina. Also well-run company. They're predominantly in Quebec, but HIVE, it's outperformed them all. That's the most important part. We thought we would do it. We have done it. And now with our Bitcoin mining operations accelerating, we think we should be able to maintain for the next several quarters far greater growth than the peers because of our strong footprint in Ethereum mining. Now, what's happened in the past 4 years is that very few Wall Street firms really have research. And it's really only been Wainwright that's come out with research on us. In Canada, when we first launched, it was GMP, and their analyst is gone. The company's gone. It's now shown up that their analyst has now moved to the Bank of Montreal. And where do money managers go? And where do the retail component go, or family offices go, institutions? So they've gone to YouTube. And it's really interesting to see how many different analysts there are that are covering all the crypto mining stocks and comparing one to the other. Some are more technical analysts, some are more fundamental analysts, but this is where the influencers are going. Where if you're interested in this space, you've had to go there. And that's something that we've noticed, in particular with the launching of our JETS ETF, is that the first early adopters were going to YouTube to get their information. The other places where you like high quality research, I believe, comes from companies like Blonity. And Blonity has his own unique way of looking at these stocks. And he has his sort of famous BMX model. And really what that BMX model is a methodology of looking at your operational excellence. And that is looking at your hashing power. So he likes to look at what your current hashing power is versus the pronouncements you've made of your future potential hashing power. And if you were mining today, what does the future hashing power look like versus the present hashing power, and divided by the market cap. So if you have a overvalued or undervalued on a relative basis, and as you can see when he printed this visual, Mara was overvalued relative to at this time, was a pronouncements made by DGI and DMG that they were buying all this new equipment. So they really were undervalued on a relative basis, and it rotates all the time. And this is where it shows up on your hashing power presently and in the future. What's really interesting, if you're a quant analyst, is that you can download all this data and be in real time of what crypto prices are and the difficulty, and do an estimation. And quite interesting for me is that Blonity has been, when he makes these announcements, that he thinks that our current revenue is running at $160,000 a day. He's pretty accurate that you've been able to calculate that. And you can do that also, I know, with public companies as asset managers. If your average fee is 60 basis points and you have $4 billion in assets, that means your run rate's $2 million a month or 24 million a year, and you back out your costs, you know what your operations profit margins are. Well, you can apply that to the crypto mining space. And that's what's really interesting for me, that people like Blonity, and you can subscribe to him on YouTube, and you can also on Patreon subscribe to his daily charts, which are given to subscribers. It's at the minimalist amount of money to become a subscriber to take a look at these companies. But I just find it's interesting that you can use this type of indicator to be able to pick stocks. The other one that's grown dramatically, because Wall Street doesn't cover this industry, have been all these analysts on Seeking Alpha. Well-known writers that were writing for Bloomberg have also gone on and have a following. They're on Seeking Alpha. Some of the great analysts from the resource sector, I know that were in the resource with Solomon Brothers, they have a huge following on Seeking Alpha. And you can also become a patron methodology of becoming a follower of them. But at the same time, there's over 10 quality analysts that are on there covering all the various stocks. So this is the sort of place where a lot of the family offices, institutions have to go, because we've seen that even though in Canada that there's very few coverage, even though this is where it started. And so we still see this operative word called FUD, which is one of those, the Urban Dictionary you have to go to, like HODL, hold on for dear life, means you're a long-term investor, or FUD, over the proof of stake, as I try to comment here. But Seeking Alpha is important. This article came out in August and said, HIVE Blockchain debunk disruption from the EIP-1559 and Ethereum 2.0 upgrades. And because there's been so much FUD with it, when we first launched it, why would you ever go into Ethereum? Because proof of stake is going to come and wipe out proof of mining. It hasn't happened. And all it's done is what we've said it would do. is it would shrink the overall supply that's in the capital markets of the crypto industry, and it would drive prices higher. So one of the interesting parts about Ethereum is that all these stable coins, the latest has been the growth in DeFi and NFTs. They're all on the backbone of Ethereum. And as they come on the backbone of Ethereum, it's only more bullish that they need more Ethereum. And as proof of stake, if people are, billions of dollars have gone into earning income rather than proof of mining, all it's done for us is made what we hodl go up in value. So I think that the more I hear about it, I think you've got another 2 to 3 years before it becomes really significant. And during that interim, we continue to mine and hodl as much Ethereum as we can. Now, to me, this was really most interesting because I know Matt Kaser, and Matt Kaser follows a quant model that came out of a group in Chicago called Holt Advisory, and it's the CFORIC model. It's the cash flow return on invested capital model, and you screen all the stocks, and you only focus on stocks in an industry or just those stocks that have the highest cash flow returns on invested capital. Historically have outperformed the overall stock market. And he contacted me and said, you know, that HIVE is all of a sudden showing as having some of the highest cash flow returns on invested capital. And it's one of those stocks that are very attractive. Now, with our recent results that have just come out today, that will get populated in the model. And we believe that it will also show very high cash flow, in particular against our peers' return on invested capital. So quant funds and many institutions use his service in Canada, and it's called Quick Financial Suite. It's a quick valuation. It's proprietary and it's traditional variables, and they track multiple portfolios. So I'm thrilled for investors, in particular in Canada, that you can screen and take a look at those stocks that have high returns on invested capital. This is another way of looking at it. At the time, HIVE was trading at 259. It was after a correction, and he was saying the enterprise value based on cash flow returns on invested capital is 468. We've rallied because Bitcoin has rallied from 30,000 and surged to 50,000, and it's recently corrected from that level, but the value of the stock even trades higher. So I think it's a nice way of looking at these stocks if you're a quant investor. I mentioned earlier, July 1st, HIVE listed on NASDAQ. We're thrilled about it. September the 13th, HIVE Blockchain provides expansion update of new NASDAQ ticker, HIVE. This is very important for our future branding. We're known for this in Canada and for the US now. I think it's just an important part of our overall growth in the branding of HIVE as a name. Other important parts of our overall strategy to build the companies, to find technically competent people that have high executive suite skill sets in communication, in particular in Sweden. And Johanna Thornblad has joined us. She's the president of our Swedish operations. As you all know, this has been a big breadwinner for us. Of sourcing green energy from Sweden and mining in the cloud and producing a lot of Ethereum over the years. She has taken on this role. She speaks many languages. She came to the US on a basketball, played D1 basketball and a scholarship. She was a top scholar academically. She went on the University of Chicago to get her MBA. She worked at Fidelity in communications and operations of communicating to all their investors. So she has a great skill set, and she lives in Europe. So it makes it much easier that she's now joined us as the company president. And I'm really thrilled that just also recently, HIVE names new leadership role is Aydin Kilic. Aydin I've known for many years. He's an electrical engineer. He has lots of experience in construction. He's going to give you a great detailed analysis of the operations. And he has lots of experience in the crypto space. So he will help take us to a new level as a company. Now I'd like to turn it over to hardworking Mr. Dynamite, who's been fatigued, I know, from getting these audits out to you, Darcy Daubaras, our CFO.
Thanks, Frank. And thank you to everybody for coming on to the call this morning. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your patience. It has been a tough ride. being one of the only companies in this crypto space that are operating in multiple jurisdictions, has its issues, has its challenges. We knew it going in. Sometimes these things come up a little bit out of the blue, but it's working well, and we're going strong, and the future looks really good for the reporting, and HIVE continues to push forward. Next slide, please. Right, so on this one, we're taking a look at the mining income increases. Frank has said year over year for the fourth quarter. Last year, we were talking about some real challenges in the industry, having really low coin prices. As we can see, this is where a lot of it comes out this year. In Q4, 33.4 million versus the 3.1 in the prior quarter a year ago, and gross mining margin. This is incredible, 27.7 million versus 1.7 million last year. One of the things that we've been doing is getting away from our former service providers and controlling our own destiny. And that means controlling our ability to hedge in Sweden. As everybody knows, Ethereum has been our backbone. That's where we started. We're continuing to be strong there. And when we have our flagship Ethereum mining center in Sweden, costs are the #1 thing. And this is what we're seeing here in the gross mining margin. And we're going to continue to keep those costs low. We can't control the market, can't control Bitcoin or Ethereum, but what we can control is costs, and that's what we always focus on. Mining income, quarter over quarter, we continue to have this moving forward. What this is showing is the large capital that we put into our operation. Q3 of this year, a little bit lower, 13.7 million. A lot of this has to do with the hard work that we've been doing in Sweden and Iceland with upgrading all of our GPU chips from the 4 gigabyte to the 8 gigabyte. We had this DAG file issue that we were having to deal with within the Ethereum marketplace. We've worked through that. We're almost completely done. We've run into some issues like everybody in the world has with supply of chips and also shipping delays coming out of China. Those chip delays aren't just affecting us, it's affecting every industry, and car manufacturers are having to pull back on what they're doing there to be able to get their cars out with lower production. And again, the gross mining margin, extremely strong quarter over quarter. Next slide, please. Adjusted EBITDA, this is one of the metrics that we use, taking a look at our earnings and our results, pulling out a lot of those outliers. 5.0 million this quarter versus 3.2 million last year. And the net income, you can barely see where the 2020 was compared to what we're doing here in 2021 at 14.3 million. Next, please. As we've always talked about, our core has been Ethereum. They continue to drive a lot of our mining margins while we diversify into doing some Bitcoin here within Canada. We've made that acquisition in Quebec back in April of 2020, and just recently, which we'll be able to see moving forward, is this incredible data center that is being built in New Brunswick. 50 megawatt facility, and the capacity within the land and the community that we've got there is willing to work with us to make this just a world-class facility on the Bitcoin side. Net income dropped down a little bit quarter over quarter. A lot of that has to do with some of the one-time charges that we were running into. We did have a loss on the sale of our subsidiary this year. That had to do with a very structural change that we made within HIVE in Sweden. What we're moving towards is more of a data center so that we can diversify, move into some potential HPC, and be more nimble to sort of change to markets. One of the things we were able to do as we were going through the DAG file issue at the third quarter and into the fourth quarter of 2021 is shift that Ethereum mining into Ethereum Classic. and being able to get some revenues and some cash from there to help pay our electricity and some of our other overhead bills while we were able to hodl our Ethereum and Bitcoin as we were building it up within Canada. Next, please. And a strong profit and earnings per share. As we're seeing, we've got 12 cents per share for the 12 months that just ended, March 31st, 2021, versus a loss last year. And we were up at 4 cents for the last quarter. I believe the Q3 quarter was 5, but a lot of this has to do with just the market changes. So very incredibly strong on the gross mining margin. That's, as we talk about all the time, can't control the price. Price obviously helps this with our coins, but it's the cost. And that cost focus, keeping that stuff down, will help us as we go through a bear market. It's going to come. We know this industry is extremely volatile, and we want to make sure that we have the metrics, do what we need to do for that quote unquote rainy day, because it's going to change. Get the cost structure in now so that when the crypto winter comes, we're going to be ready for it. Next, please. And this is one Frank had mentioned a little bit earlier, just the change in difficulty over the last 2 years. This is to the new miners plugging in their computers, all the gamers that are getting their cards, starting to mine Ethereum, and just driving that the difficulty up. When people see prices go up, they think that they can just plug in and make some money, and it's great. So you've got a lot more nodes and people getting onto the network, and this is what we're seeing. But we're continuing to be able to mine our Ethereum as we see it's come down a little bit. That has to do with this changeover from the 4 gig to 8 gig, which we're very excited to almost have completely finished. Next one, please. As we can see, historically here, the Ethereum mined by HIVE, we have had a drop in the last couple quarters, and once again, that has to do with the switch from the 8 gigabyte to from the 4 gigabyte to the 8, the problems that we experienced with shipping and getting the chips out of China. It was a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. You run into a lot of issues over there, whether it's their extended vacations, shutdowns, and the shipping cost is astronomical. And when you run into situations where you've got your 8 gigabyte chips, they're sitting somewhere in the factory ready to be shipped, and someone else comes along and says that they'll pay a little bit extra, those chips are gone. So it's a continuous communication with them, trying to get those chips as quickly as possible so that we can have our complete switch over within Iceland and within Sweden. Next, please. As we talked about just a moment ago, this is a chart showing the Ethereum network difficulty and just how it's exploded. That's probably the best word I can use over the last 12 to 18 months. Next, please. Sounds good.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great. Now that we're taking a look at the Bitcoin mined by the company during the last 5 quarters, as you can see, going back a year ago, we had 0 Bitcoins that were being mined per quarter. This was as HIVE moved out of the cloud agreement that was very unprofitable for us and moved, as you can see, into Q1. This is when we had our first flagship Bitcoin mining facility located in Lachute, Quebec, that we acquired in April of 2020. Midway through there, we had the halvening in May. But what we did is we had a commitment to Bitcoin, even though as I mentioned before, we started out as an Ethereum miner. We right away put in orders with Bitmain for over 2,000 machines over a period of time. As you can see, we had that drop in the second quarter, dropped down to 88. We built that up even though through the halvening to 165 and 189, that had to do with our slow and controlled manner that we acquired machines for this facility through the build-up phase, which we're very proud of. And the nice thing about this is when we acquired the Lachute facility, it had a bunch of S9 machines. And as you can see, they were dropped off a little bit during that halvening because they were unprofitable. We did sell some of them, but we did hang on to a lot of them, and we're really glad that we did, because when we saw an increase in the Bitcoin price, we were able to plug those S9 machines in, and they were profitable at those higher prices. And it allowed us to continue to bring revenue in while we waited for some of these deliveries to arrive and get them installed in Quebec. Next slide, please. As you can see here with everybody that is following this industry, with the network difficulty, just having a complete fall once China made their crackdown on cryptocurrency mining, falling over 45% from May 13th of 2021 into July. This had a huge effect on Bitcoin mining. It helped out the North American miners in the short term as that hash power came offline in China. But as you can see, it's continued to be built up. A lot of that is from the North American miners that had orders and deliveries to come in. And I think some of it probably had to do with the Chinese miners reallocating their mining equipment to other locations where they could continue to mine. Next slide, please. This just quickly gives us an overview of where our capital structure is. Once again, we're extremely proud to be on the NASDAQ and have that ticker symbol of HIVE that goes with our brand, so that people know if they're in the US or Canada, they know what it is. And also our German exchange, HBF. And you can see here, 384 million shares issued and outstanding. Next slide, please. Once again, we're extremely happy to be able to get above 1 exahash in August of ASIC Bitcoin mining capacity. That had been our goal that we were able to achieve earlier than we expected, even though that we had had delays in a number of our shipments coming out of Asia. The nice thing, because we've been ordering a lot of our equipment from different suppliers, we didn't have that supplier risk. So we could spread it out between Canaan, MicroBT, and some of the miners that we had coming in from Bitmain. As we're moving forward, as we've announced, we are expecting to try to get to 3 exahash by the end of fiscal 2022, and that's taken into account our Ethereum equivalents, doing the conversion on that for what we've got, and also talking about the additional purchases that we've made and announced lately, over 5,800 of these next generation Bitcoin miners that we're expecting to get in the next little while. Next one, please. Thank you. And this is just talking about our hodling strategy and sort of our long-term viewpoint on this. As we've announced, we've got over 1,000 coins in our hodl, in our inventory, which we're extremely proud of. It was sort of a marker that we had set internally to get to there, and we're continuing to hodl those coins. And Ethereum, a target also of 25,000, which we've now achieved. We have had to sell some of our Ethereum and Bitcoin over time in small amounts so that we can fund some of those short-term capital projects so that we can increase our capacity moving forward and continue to hodl those coins. Next one, please. And at this time, I want to, I'm glad to pass along the torch to our new President and Chief Operating Officer, Aydin Kilic, who will give us an operational update.
And thank you, Darcy, for that introduction. And I'd like to thank Frank for welcoming me and having me join the HIVE team, the HIVE family. Very excited. I was in New York City. I was able to see the team ring the NASDAQ bell. It was once in a lifetime experience. It was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm here to provide some operations as the new President and Chief Operating Officer of HIVE Blockchain Technologies. Next slide, please. So here we have a video of our facility in New Brunswick. So this facility actually is quite remarkable. It was originally part of the GP1 acquisition that was announced earlier in 2021. And this facility, which was a 50 megawatt facility, 30 megawatts of which were constructed, there was a 50 megawatt substation, is since being built and completed by HIVE. And so you could see the construction crews there. You know, this is a, industrial grade infrastructure project. You know, there's trenching, foundations, steel, you know, there are lots of high voltage. And this is a really gorgeous design. I've been to this facility. I've seen it myself. I describe it as a military grade crypto mine. It's a high efficiency design, all passive, very elegant in that it's simple when you see the finished product, but when you see how much engineering and thermodynamics and thoughtful consideration goes into the planning, it's quite a marvel. And so that was one of the great things that HIVE acquired in the GP1 acquisition. The other thing that it acquired in the GP1 acquisition was the intellectual capital, you know, the phenomenal team, all the individuals at GP1 who are now part of the HIVE family. You know, Bill Gray, our CTO, is a genius. Gabriel Igby, Director of Legal Affairs, incredibly smart. Iggy Lai, he heads up our strategic partnerships with all the suppliers. Luke Rossi is also a networking genius, and Omar helps on the financial side. He's a CPA, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with him. I deal with the whole team every single day, and so this is part of what makes HIVE such a special company. Not only we're growing in Bitcoin mining footprint, but we're growing in intellectual capital, and so, you know, under our collective leadership, what we've actually done is we've taken that 50 megawatt site, right? And we're 30 megawatts were completed when we acquired. Now we're completing the remaining 20 megawatt building to get us to the full 50. However, under our collective leadership with Frank as a visionary, we're now expanding that footprint. We've now got a fourth building for an additional 20 megawatts that will come on in Q1 2022. That'll bring us to 70 megawatts at this one site. And we actually have a view to get the site north of 100 megawatts. So it'll be one of the largest single site crypto mining facilities in Canada, which we're very excited about. Next slide, please. So here's another video actually of our 20 megawatt GPU mining site in Boden, Sweden. Okay, so earlier I was talking about how we expanded the 50 megawatt site to 70 megawatts. And so that's easier said than done. So originally that site had a 50 megawatt substation. So in order to expand beyond that, we actually had to get a second substation. So this sci-fi looking thing on the left-hand side in this photo is that substation. This is a 30 megawatt substation that is in addition to the 50 megawatt. And so which of course is 80 megawatts of substation capacity. And as I mentioned, the original 50 megawatts of capacity that we had amongst 3 buildings is now being expanded to 70 megawatts in 4 buildings with a view for even further growth. And so on the right is actually pictured one of these. This is that elegant dual pass passive cathedral design. So your lower louvers is where your cool air actually comes into the building, right? You have your row of miners on each side of that building. And then the central chamber is actually your hot aisle, where all of the hot air gets exhausted. It rises up naturally, and it actually exhausts up out of the second set of louvers in the top part of the structure. You know, and I've traveled the world. I've seen Bitcoin mines all over North America. I've seen them in Europe, and this is truly, you know, I use the word military grade just to describe the amount of like precision and technology that went into this design. Purpose built, you know, beautiful modular design, future proofed. It's just really fantastic. Next slide, please. So here we're going to talk a little bit about the pipeline that of ASIC deliveries that HIVE has. You know, people often ask in the wake of COVID, well, is there supply chain issues with manufacturers of ASICs in China? You know, do you guys have a pipeline? The answer is a resounding yes. A little overview. Currently, we have 1.1 exahash of active Bitcoin mining capacity, right? And that's active. That's today. You know, we're producing over 7 Bitcoin per day, and that's a big number because a lot of other companies talk about what they might be doing or you know, machines that they've ordered. But this is 1.1 exahash active today, over 7 Bitcoin per day. And then in addition to that, we have almost 4 terahash of Ethereum mining capacity active today as well. And so that does another 80 Bitcoin per, 80 Ethereum per day. So on a run rate basis, that's almost $200 million a year. It's over $200 million US per year of run rate revenue based on our current active hashing. And you know, if you take that Ethereum mining capacity, it works out to almost 800 petahash of Bitcoin mining capacity. So just so, because again, HIVE is the first and only industrial scale Ethereum and Bitcoin miner. So for those shareholders and investors out there who want to be able to do an apples to apples, well, you could say, you know, currently with about 1.1 exahash of Bitcoin mining plus approximately 800 petahash of Bitcoin mining equivalent, which comes again from the Ethereum, that puts us at almost 2 exahash of Bitcoin mining equivalent capacity. Now, what lies ahead? Well, within the next month, we'll be at 1.2 exahash. We've got more machines on the way that are getting plugged in. And we have an additional 2 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity from all the ASICs that HIVE has ordered. So therefore, our current pipeline of shipments has us at over 3 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity by the end of 22. And that's pure Bitcoin mining capacity based on the pipeline of ASICs that HIVE has. And by the way, this is all in tandem with the expanding footprint of green and clean infrastructure that HIVE is building. And then in addition to that, we still have that Ethereum pipeline, that Ethereum mining. And so when you add the Ethereum mining equivalent, it brings us to over 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining equivalent through 2022. And so the following slides, we're going to highlight some of these recent strategic orders because, you know, Frank is a master of the capital markets. He's a visionary. I'm a very methodical numbers guy. I'm an engineer by trade. I love mathematical analysis, and I also have a lot of capital markets experience. And so the point of me saying this is, you know, one has to understand, is your capital performing for you when you deploy it, when you're starting to make money on that? And so, you know, some companies go out there and they make these massive announcements of, you know, one huge gigantic order and you know, with no clear plan of how that's going to be deployed. Well, you know, here at HIVE, we see a great opportunity to acquire chips at a good $1 per terahash, and then we act on it, right? So this recent announcement, actually a couple of weeks ago, September 10th, about 2,300 M30Ss, which are the Ferraris of the micro BT. That's 229 petahash in that one order. And that comes, those will arrive monthly, right, throughout 2022, because as we build and scale and more of our green and clean infrastructure comes online, we have machines arriving monthly, which can be plugged in. Next slide, please. Just 2 days before that, we mentioned that we had the 3,000 micro BTs that were ordered, And that was another 294 petahash. And so just to put that into context, these two orders alone constitute about 520 petahash, okay? And again, to be delivered throughout 2022 in tranches. And so that 500 petahash of additional Bitcoin mining capacity increases our run rate revenue for Bitcoin mining by 50%, because we're at 1.1 exahash of current Bitcoin mining capacity, and these two orders alone at about 520 petahash increase that Bitcoin mining run rate revenue by 15%. And that takes using Bitcoin prices when these press releases came out, took our run rate revenue at that time to almost 300 million per year. And again, it's always about ordering them when a good opportunity at $1 per terahash acquisition price on the ASICs presents itself, because we want to be able to actually make our money back on our investments and then have free cash flow, because this is a long-term business. HIVE is the first crypto miner, the first public crypto miner. So they've been at it longer than anybody in the public markets. And so, we have a view to continue as a sustainable long-term business and deliver value to shareholders. Next slide, please. So on this following slide, again, we had a couple more orders that were announced earlier in the summer. We had 1,800 units from Bitmain, which were 100 terahash ASICs. And as well, we had 4,000 micro BT units, which was 272 petahash. That was announced at the end of July. And so at the end of July, we had reached that $200 million annual run rate figure, which was a huge milestone for the company. So we're sort of stepping through these slides in reverse chronological order, because I'm just sort of pointing to some recent highlights and showing, the methodical step-by-step growth. Again, we want to make sure that when we order these ASICs, we not only look to the order and when the machines arrive, but that our capital and our deposit structure is attractive to us, because you don't want to have to put a whole bunch of money up front and then wait a long time. You want to be able to pay for your ASICs and have them arrive shortly thereafter, so they could start hashing. And that's the other key thing. Having a bunch of miners sitting in boxes doesn't show up on your income statement, right? So the key is having the footprint built out. By the way, this is a great photo, because this is actually the hot aisle on the right-hand side of our New Brunswick facility, one of the buildings. So you see, just so clean and streamlined. That's the thermally insulative wall that separates the heat exhaust from all these miners. And you can see up top the exhaust louvers where all the hot air is expelled. On the other side of this silver wall is where all the cold air is intaked. Again, that dual pass cathedral passive design. And so there you go, a little bit of insight into what our operations actually look like. Next slide, please. And this was an earlier order in the summer, another 3,019 micro BT M30Ss, which was another 264 petahash. So this back then, the operating hash rate was 566 petahash. And so this order increased it to 830. And so you could see how there's been consistent incremental growth as a company, right? And, earlier Frank pointed out how HIVE has not been nearly as dilutive at all compared to some of the other companies that have just done a bunch of stock issuances. And so, HIVE has been very strategic, both from a capital markets perspective and also from a crypto mining fundamental perspective of, raising money at the right time, deploying it strategically, increasing that hash rate, getting that annualized run rate revenue up. And the numbers, we had great numbers, which Darcy had just presented. And so, you could see everything crystallized in the financial statements. Next slide, please. Finally, we have certainly not last, but certainly not least, was this Canada Day announcement of our joining the NVIDIA Partner Network. So this was actually a very remarkable press release, because we had a pipeline of A40s, A4000s, A5000s, and A6000s. These are NVIDIA high performance, especially the A40s. These are the NVIDIA high performance computing GPUs. These are very high demand. They're impossible to get. And we have a massive pipeline, which is detailed in this press release. And so this actually gives us diversity of our business model, because we're also doing a 1 megawatt HPC R&D, and we're working with our strategic partners to develop a software API for client-facing use of the HPC. So this will be another income stream. Frank likes to point out that, Ethereum mining, you might get $2 a day, from a GPU rig. Well, you get $2 an hour when you're processing HPC, right? So it's a very, very high ticket, high revenue business model. It of course involves more client-facing interface, software development, etc. But again, we have capital committed. We're actively working on this, and stay tuned for more updates on that. But by the way, in the meantime, all of these GPUs, once they arrive, that would bring us to over 6 terahash of Ethereum mining capacity. Again, we're about 4 terahash now. Again, 4 terahash is about 4,000 gigahash of Ethereum mining capacity. That alone is over 1% of the entire Ethereum mining network. With all these NVIDIA high performance computing GPUs, brings us to 6,000 gigahash, or over 6 terahash of ETH mining capacity. And by the way, that is about an equivalent 1.5 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity. If you go back to that consideration of, well, what does that mean? If you have 6,000 gigahash of Ethereum mining, how would you interpret that when you consider Bitcoin? Right? That's about another 1.5 exahash. So very exciting, and with the long-term 3 exahash of pure Bitcoin mining capacity from all the ASIC orders that HIVE has, plus the 1.5 exahash equivalent of Ethereum mining, puts us at about 4.5 exahash on our project roadmap through the end of 2022. Next slide, please. So Boden, Sweden, where HIVE has its 20 megawatt facility, and we're looking to expand here. There's actually a lot of data centers here. Facebook has a big data center as well. I was there earlier this month with Frank. We met our operating partners, Barrage and Blockbase. It was a great team. Went to a local hockey game. HIVE is very enmeshed in the community. Recently made a donation, and the local hockey arena is going to be the HIVE Hockey Arena. Very supportive of the local community. Met with the Boden Business Agency as well. Very positive visit. And just a quick note, you do notice that Facebook has a data center there. Well, another word on this HPC business model. We all know how incredibly expensive Amazon AWS is. Well, here's the thing. The HPC sector has double-digit growth for the next 10 years, right? And so again, having all that HPC GPU hardware along with the infrastructure that we're developing gives us diversified revenue streams in a double-digit growth sector. We're experimenting with our HPC setup in Sweden, but also in Canada. So it's very exciting. Next slide, please. So green and clean. So, I did an interview yesterday, and I was asked, what can you do to become a green and clean miner? Ever since there's been Elon's tweets and all this rhetoric about, coal consumption. Well, the answer is do what HIVE has been doing all along, which is mine with renewable power. In HIVE's case, it's either hydro or geothermal. And, we're not combusting fossil fuels and generating a carbon footprint from that economic activity, but rather, we're processing transactions on the blockchain and contributing to the decentralized new financial economy. Again, the underpinning qualities here: low electricity costs, cool, dry climate, great internet connections, and by the way, political stability. Again, Iceland, Sweden, and Canada. Now, unfortunately, for people who've already sunk millions of dollars into coal-fired electricity, their only option to really be green and clean is to buy carbon credits, which cost upwards of $5,000 per Bitcoin. If you do the math and based on some research that we've come across. So again, HIVE is green and clean, the first publicly traded crypto miner, the first Bitcoin and Ethereum industrial scale public miner, and the first ESG, the original ESG conscious, environmentally friendly crypto miner. Next slide, please. And here is just a summary of some great YouTube content. We've got a lot of great coverage. There's a lot of followers, and these are crypto enthusiasts. These are people that follow the HIVE story. There's some really great collateral out there if you want to learn more about our operations, understand about the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. So a lot of great resources out there. Have a look, and that's one thing HIVE I think is really respected, because there's so much great communication with the market. Frank has very inspiring work ethic, both as executive chairman of HIVE and also running US Global. He's just a fountain of knowledge for the investing public. And there's some really great interviews here. Next slide.
Be sure to follow HIVE Blockchain on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, and then, of course, our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. I just want to remind everyone, for any additional questions today that we were not able to get to, please email info@hiveblockchain.com. This concludes HIVE Blockchain Technologies webcast for the year ended March 31st, 2021. Thank you.